Hello.
I didn't know it was hot yet. I was joking with Miss King.
Yes.
It's on 3, it's on 2, it's on 1.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, the goal of this beloved community talk experience is to provide a platform for you, the audience, to gain more insight about education on and inspiration from the life of Mother Viola Fletcher. She is the oldest living survivor of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. She was 7 years old when that occurred. In addition, and very importantly, this courageous conversation we hope tonight will highlight the necessity of love-centered learning of history in ensuring authentic reconciliation, inclusive of reparations, and creation of the beloved community. Good evening again, and welcome to this very special presentation of the King Center's Beloved Community Talks. We welcome those of you joining us for this historical conversation in person right here at the Yolanda D. King Theater for the Performing Arts, and virtually from all around our nation and the world. Now, we know there are heinous events in history that if we reflect on them with courage, compassion, and commitment to change, are critical to shaping the future of our world. What happened in Greenwood, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood district from May 31st to June 1st, 1921, is one such grossly inhumane event that should significantly influence our understanding of racism and the human struggle that continues for freedom. In an effort to explore what is commonly called the Tulsa Race Massacre in a way that shines a light on the injustices we face today and how we can realize and achieve the vision of the beloved community, the King Center created this opportunity for us to learn more about the Tulsa Race Massacre. Now, to explore how understanding history, again, can heal and fuel justice, which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. defined as, quote, love correcting everything that stands against love. And we also want to hear from one of our great elders who endured the devastating riots and the acts and the aftermath of the massacre. So I'm very honored to be able to introduce to you tonight our very special guest for this beloved community talk. Of course, we start with Mother Fletcher, 109 years old, the oldest known survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre. 100 years after the massacre, she testified before Congress about the need for reparations. She is an author, and we believe she is the oldest author published. That's a fact. So it shows you're never too old. She's a civil rights activist still, whose remarkable journey and her, quote, never give up attitude has reinvigorated the call for reparations and social equity across the country. She's inspired and educated countless individuals. Her recently published memoir, Don't Let Them Bury My Story, has received significant acclaim and has become a source of inspiration for many. Our hostess for the night, with the mostest, of course, is Dr. Bernice King. We all know her as a global thought leader, strategist, a solutionist, an orator, a peace advocate, and then, of course, she's the CEO of the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change. We all just call it the King Center. This was founded by her mother, Coretta Scott King, as the official living memorial to her life, work, and of course, the legacy of her father. In this position, Bernice continues to advance her parents' legacy of nonviolent social change through policy advocacy, research, as well as education and training through the Kingian philosophy of nonviolence, which she rebranded Nonviolence 365. As a noted author, she has, to her credit, hard questions, heart answers, as well as a children's book entitled It Starts With Me, which is part of the King Center's Be Love movement. She's a member of the State Bar of Georgia, admitted in 1992, a registered mediator through the Georgia Office of Dispute Resolution, a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, pinky up, the Rotary Club of Atlanta, the International Women's Forum, the National Council of Negro Women, and the 50th anniversary class of Leadership Atlanta. She's a board member of the King Center and the National Black Bank Foundation. Now, Dr. King is also on the advisory council chair for Ready Life. Now, this is a fintech services company that provides a novel pathway to home ownership without a credit score. Yeah. Additionally, she serves as Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Alliance for Redemption Holdings, an investor company acquiring an existing profitable bank to build a tech-enabled, minority-focused financial institution. What can we say about Dr. King? She's an innovative, inspirational, and most importantly, transformational leader. She is devoted to advancing the legacy of her parents and to ensuring that new generations of influencers are introduced to their teachers. The King Center, as well as the work of creating the beloved community with Nonviolence 365. That is her mission. Our final person on stage is Ike Howard. He's the founder of the Viola Fletcher Foundation. He's a proud military veteran, a father, a husband, and he's also the grandson of Mother Viola Ford Fletcher. He is the co-author of Don't Let Them Bury My Story, the oldest living survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre, in her own words. Now, his passion fuels his life of service, brought by first-hand experience of the diverse challenges and the opportunities found in our contemporary and societal construct. A respectful and loving relationship with Viola and his Uncle Red solidifies his belief that supportive governance structures, mentors, caregivers, and family are essential to achieving your creative best and living well. Ike Howard knows that together we are truly better. A round of applause for our So, Mother Fletcher, you know, you have the age, but you also have the beauty. So I'm going to start with you. Reading a statement from your memoir. I stand for all those whose names have been lost in time and those resting in marked and unmarked graves. Before our conversation, I invite everyone here and viewing online to join in a moment of silence in memory of those whom Mother Fletcher spoke about. Those who were forgotten, who were robbed of life by hate, racism, and rage, who've been lost in time and are resting in unmarked and some marked graves. A moment, please, to remember them in just a moment of silence. Mother Fletcher, thank you so much for sharing your story with the world. I think that's why God let you live so long, because you needed to tell your story. We are deeply honored to have you here and to make sure your story is not buried. In your own words, can you tell us why you wanted to ensure that the next generations of young people understood what happened in 1921?
May I have my grandson to answer that?
Mother Fletcher, well, the family itself wanted to make sure that history never repeats itself. History just changes with technology, and they still do things to keep us in a certain position. However, she wanted to make sure that this history was not lost. So you're never too old to tell your story, and we thought it was important that we tell our stories. There are many stories, some to this one, maybe not quite like this one, but you're never too old to write a memoir. Reading is fundamental, as you know, and we need to understand where we came from to understand where we need to go.
So, Mr. Howard, you said your grandmother wouldn't talk about this when you were a child.
Well, many people don't know that everybody that survived the massacre was put in like a mini concentration camp. And in order to leave the concentration camp, you had to be checked out by a white person. So there was some good white allies that would check people out, and then they would just run. And they would seek their loved ones, find out who died, who didn't die. There was a lot of ups and downs emotionally. They would spread the word, okay, they're keeping everybody in the concentration camp, you can't leave. Before they let anybody be checked out, they gathered everybody together and they said, look, if you say anything about this, I'm gonna kill you, your son, your daughter, your dog, your goat, your cow, whatever you have. We don't care what it is. We're gonna kill everybody. So they created a situation of mental slavery. So everybody was afraid to talk about this particular situation because you had the city council involved, you had the sheriff department involved, you had the sheriff department, National Guard. You had, people that work in the courthouse. And so how can you get justice from a situation where they control everything? So they had all the positions of power. So the black people who remained knew, okay, we can't talk about this. And this is why the story has been buried for so long. And this is why the story needs to be told. Now that the story is out, the city of Tulsa, they built a museum, Greenwood Rising, $40 million. They have streets called Reconciliation Way, but they really haven't reconciled with the community of Greenwood. If you go into Greenwood Rising, you won't see Mother Fletcher on the wall. You won't see Mother Randall on the wall. You won't see Uncle Red on the wall because they can't put them on the wall because they haven't reconciled with the last 3 survivors. They're there every day, and the city hasn't reconciled this situation. It's a public nuisance case. There's an ongoing litigation right now. It's called a public nuisance case. They've been blighted. And they need, they need to be made whole. And so the case got dismissed with prejudice, even though this was a trial to see if we can go to trial. And there was already precedents for us to move forward, but the case got dismissed anyway. Well, now we're at the Supreme Court asking them to overturn the dismissal and allow us the opportunity to go to trial to prove our case. And it's awkward because the state of Oklahoma did the same thing to Johnson & Johnson. Under the same public nuisance, under the same situation, they claimed public nuisance. They were allowed to move forward and go to trial. They won a case with Johnson & Johnson. I think it was $250 million. And so it's good for the goose, but not for the gander. So the case was dismissed, and it was dismissed on a Friday, long after everybody would be on their way home from work. So the lawyer didn't get a chance to respond to it. The way the lawyer found out about it, the lawyer's name is Demario Solomon Simmons. The way he found out about it, he was going to dinner with his wife and reported this case, put a camera in his face and said, Demario, how do you feel about the dismissal of the case? And he didn't know anything about it. And that's mad disrespect for a case so important. That's mad disrespectful. The last court date was on May 10th, 2023. Mother Fletcher's birthday is on 5/10/1914. So the court date to dismiss the case was on her birthday. The judge didn't know that. So she couldn't dismiss it on that day because they probably would have burned half of Tulsa down. Who knows? We don't know what would have happened. It would have been mad disrespectful to disrespect this woman who persevered so much on her birthday. So instead of being somewhere nice and a nice restaurant, so on and so forth, we were in court on her birthday. She looked that woman in the face and said, I'll make my decision in a couple months. The next month was Juneteenth. She couldn't do it on Juneteenth. All hell might break loose. It was another holiday that came up. So she waited it out till she thought everybody was not paying attention, for those of you not following the case, and she dismissed the case. We went to the lawyer and the team, they went to the courthouse and they made a plea to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court stayed the case. Now the Supreme Court could have said, okay, kick it down to the lower court. That would waste a year and a half. These are centennials. Raise your hand if you have somebody in your family over 100. And maybe at 80, 85. Most of us never get a chance to even lay hands on somebody that's 99. Not to mention 100. These are 3 centennials seeking justice. And so the Supreme Court said, we'll stay the case, we'll hear it. We won't allow it to go to the lower courts because we don't want anybody to pass away and that be on my watch. And the DOJ is watching. We went to go speak to the DOJ. The DOJ is watching. We had an interview with the DOJ in Washington, D.C.
So we still have this case evolving. And Dr. King, as a mediator, and when you look at your mother's ideas of creating this beloved community, how do we expand this even more?
Well, you know, as I was sitting here thinking, or listening, should I say, this is enough to make you real mad. Can I get an amen? I wanted to say that because oftentimes when we talk about the beloved community and expanding it, people think we're talking about some ideal world that is not filled with injustice and conflict. The beloved community is a world that we create based in a love-centered posture to correct, repair, restore, build up, and live in a manner where the dignity, worth, and value of everyone is regarded. So I said a lot there, but let me put it to you this way. We have to have a vision and a mechanism to deal with all of this pain, the injustices, the repression, oppression, suppression that has taken place since the beginning of this nation. And the beloved community helps us with that. It establishes ground rules. The first ground rule is we're in this world together. Most of us were not living, she was, the only one in here, living when this horrific time took place. We've inherited it. And the first place we have to start when we inherit bad things is we have to start with truth. We have to discover how did we get to where we are today. And be honest about that. That's why her story is important. And we're gonna help to make sure that it's not, buried. Because Daddy said our lives begin to end the day we remain silent about the things that matter. What she's talking about matters to who we are today. But we have to figure out how to repair these things, how to not just reconcile, because people want to get to reconciliation real quick. Let's start from right now. Okay, we got this world, we're so diverse, people are working in places together, there's all these different communities, some people are living in, interracial communities, but the reality is that there is a lot of trauma and pain out of our history that we have to address, be honest with, and frankly, I wish we would do what they did in South Africa, which is a truth, healing, and reconciliation commission. And I think the beloved community can help us with that process.
Well, back then, the Greenwood District of Tulsa was one of the strongest examples of Black economic success in modern America. And it makes me think of our street, of Auburn Avenue. And you think back to the riot of 1906 here in the city of Atlanta and the massacre of Black people. Well, since the demise of Reconstruction, there have been attempts by Black Americans to create their own cities, municipalities, and local governments, but they've largely been thwarted by white violence. So the question becomes, on how this all got started. A lie, a rumor,
It was a lie. Definitely was a lie.
Because it was on, so if some of you don't know the history, and I see a lot of young faces that probably do, a young black boy named Dick Rowland was falsely accused of assaulting a white woman, Sarah Page, on an elevator. And in response to the false accusations, mobs showed up at the courthouse to capture Dick. Now, mind you, the woman involved said, this did not happen. Mm-hmm. She said it did not happen. So the crowds went to capture Dick and to, well, you know what they wanted to do. The 2001 Race Riot Commission later found out that Dick Rowland was likely to be lynched, had armed black citizens not attempted to protect him while he was in the courthouse. An estimated 300 people were killed and 6,000 were made homeless because of the massacre. And yet not one of those crimes has been prosecuted at the city, state, or federal level.
Okay, now let me give you some insight.
Okay?
Let me give you some real insight. Okay, that young lady, Mr. Rowland, they were lovers. Now, think about what it would have been like to maintain a relationship back then. That's what Granny know. It was strictly taboo. It was strictly taboo. So I'm good friends with Mr. Dick's niece, and she told me the family history. This woman would sneak to their house in the middle of the night and have dinner at their house. You know what I'm saying? So there's no way she was going to prosecute the man that she loved. They threatened her life. They threatened to put her in jail. And she did not prosecute the man that she loved. He was later removed and they had to release him. So the numbers say 300 died. It's more like 3,000 died. They was throwing bodies in the river. Granny, what did you see that night? What did you see? Tell us what you saw.
So dead people getting their heads shot off and killed, houses burned.
Hold on for a
churches.
second. Hold on for a second. Do me
She's
this favor.
7 years old, remember when this happened.
Do me a
7 years
favor.
old.
Okay. Close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. Okay. Now hold your breath. You can't see, you can't breathe. The whole city is on fire. Don't breathe, because you can't breathe. If so, you breathing in ashes. They dropped bombs on top of the rooftops. They threw mocktail cocktails in the bottom. So the buildings were burning from the top and the bottom at the same time. You can't breathe. You can't see. Now you open your eyes to see and you're crying black tears. You see people getting killed. You see blood in the streets. People running from their life. You're wondering, why is this happening? What's going on? They're stealing items of value. Don't breathe. You can't breathe. The whole city is on fire. Your skin is on fire. You don't know which way is north, which way is south, which way is east.
That's right.
Open your eyes.
And we were told to leave, that they were killing all the black people.
That's what it was like. That's what it was like that night in Greenwood. It was just a taste of what it was like that night in Greenwood. And so now you're made homeless. Or you put in a concentration camp. And you're told never to speak of this. If so, we kill you too. With a few other words I can't say. We'll kill you too, such and such, such and such.
Now, this situation was used as a scapegoat because there was this real concern about Greenwood and how shall we say it,
Prosperous.
rich it was and prosperous it was. This black community was rich in history and in money. So some people were envious of Greenwood's prosperity. So I guess the question to you, Mother Fletcher, describe what the culture was like before the massacre. What was it like in Greenwood?
We had some of everything. Yeah, grocery stores, theaters, churches, and parks, and just anything that, that human people would enjoy doing. But it was segregated on the north side of town, and, I guess in most cities it is, I don't know, but we were. So the dividing line, there.
So I want to ask you, Reverend Bernice, when we talk about prosperity, that is also a problem in some communities still in Black neighborhoods. The lack of, because you've got redlining, which is not supposed to be, but it happens. How can the beloved community move this so that there's the prosperity in the Black community as well as the community as a whole?
That's a class, Monica. I don't know if I can answer
I
that.
know that's a class, but you know.
Yeah, that's a class, because, we have to study Daddy's movement. We were making some progress, as a community of Blacks and as a nation under his leadership, because he was galvanizing and strategizing and creating infrastructure so that as we move forward as a nation, that we would have equity that addressed those things that would catch us up to what created the inequities. And so in order to do that, we have to study it, and then we have to begin the process of connecting, collaborating, and strategizing to deal with this. But part of it is, again, what I said earlier. Some of us know the truth. Some of us still trying to get the truth. Others of us in this nation are denying the truth. And still others of us are not sure how to handle the truth. And so I think a beloved community mindset, helps us to manage all of this. It gives us a context for having these kinds of conversations, for talking about truthfully what can be done to correct things, because we're not talking about correction right now. We're talking about let's just go forward. And I'm still at a place where, wait a minute, there's so much stuff that's got to be, that's why Daddy said, justice at its best is love, correcting everything that stands against love. And so we are in a season now where we have to use the beloved community posture to correct all of this stuff. We have to create corrective legislation.
Let me stop there. What is corrective legislation? Give us an example.
That's a good question. I don't know. You trying to speak?
Yeah. We, the three survivors testified before Congress. 3 centennials, that was an event in itself. There should be no statute of limitations on mass murder, period. The first survivors,
I didn't know there was.
yes,
So that needs
because
to be correct.
That's a big correction.
big
That's
correction.
one.
So Dr. Ogletree, Johnny Cochran, they took the first case to court, went all the way to the Supreme Court. 250 people living at that time. They got dismissed. And they were like, you trying to deny that this happened? They said, sir, we're not saying it didn't happen. What we're saying is the statute of limitations ran out and there's nothing we can do about it. They know what happened, but they got away with it based on the statute of limitations. So that's one thing that we can change.
Yes, so that's the perfect example. There are many things on the book right now that we need to go back and look at like that. Because people don't know these things are still there, and it was created for the time period, to advantage the white community.
Jim Crow.
Jim Crow and all of that. So we need to do a massive looking at what kind of legislation is on the books in our counties, in our cities, in our states, and in our nation, that we've got to go back and undo, and then think about what's correct going forward. Because he's right, there should not be a statute of limitations. There's not a statute of limitations, I believe, on rape. Is there? Huh? You said there is?
Depending on what
She
state.
says
Okay.
on what state you
Depending on
live in.
states. So, but there's some crimes, there's not a statute of limitations. So it's stuff like that, because a lot of these laws were
I don't know
created
any
at time.
crime greater than death, so.
Yeah, right, exactly. But a lot of these laws were created at a time when we lived in Jim Crowism. It was to continue to suppress and to hurt and to harm and damage the black community.
But you talked about people in denial. This tonight, we are educating people. We've been talking about it since the book came out. But how do we deal with people who say, I don't want to talk about that. It's history. It's gone. There's nothing we can do.
We, if we have a saying, if you know right, do right. Okay? One thing you can't get more of is more life. And the closer you get to heaven or hell, you start really thinking about, oh my God, where am I going, up or down? And I know I did some things wrong, I said some things wrong, I supported some things that you knew was wrong. If you know right, do right. So when you get one pinky toe, an elbow, and a leg, and a thigh in the grave, you start to change a little bit. Unless you old school KKK, you're never gonna change because you're brainwashed. You know what I'm saying? That's why it takes generations to evolve things. We have a lot of advocates that don't look like us, and we need them. We are stronger together. You know what I'm saying? But you need to tell your other people, we need to face the truth. Like Ms. King said, you need to be truthful about the situation and do what's right. Dominoes are starting to fall. They did reparations in California. They did some kind of reparations in the East Coast. There are ways to make things happen, and you can legislate those things. So if you say, I don't have a leg up, I didn't have a leg up, yes, you did. You may not have seen it that way, or know it that way, yes, you did have a leg up. Because based on the even playing field, you see what we can do on the even playing field.
Now, in the book that you co-authored with your grandmother, and I'm quoting here, you said, Greenwood allows us all to dream, to envision the promise of America. And within a few hours, the dream became a nightmare. So what are your thoughts about what we do today? If we lived history to learn how to be more humane, how can it help us dream again and commit to realizing the dream? That's to both of you. How can we commit to realizing the dream?
First of all, we ban anybody that say you should ban a book. Reading is fundamental. If you want to hide something from somebody, you put it in plain sight. You put it in the English book. I didn't know this, it's in the book. Read books. Read to your children. Read to your grandchildren. Have your grandchildren read to your grandmother. They would love it. You want your people to live to be 100? You have to engage them mentally and physically. I used to tell my grandmother every day, wiggle your toes. If you don't move it, you lose it. Wiggle your toes. What happened on The Price is Right today? That's her show. What happened on the Steve Harvey? That's her show. You know what I'm saying? So you have to engage our people.
Dr. King?
Well, I'm gonna challenge him on one thing. I don't think we can ban people. I know a lot of people are talking about that today.
Educate people.
Okay.
Educate
Yes,
people.
Yeah.
Okay.
The council culture does not work. I don't care how many times we try it, because the reality is that the people who are doing either the misguided, if you want to call it, for some people, evil, because I don't just do broad strokes and think that everybody who's doing it is doing it because they're evil. Some people are doing it out of ignorance. And so we have a responsibility, I believe, at least I know I have a responsibility to not leave people in their ignorance and their hate, in their fear. Because some people are doing things out of fear. We know there's a lot of fear right now because the statistics are changing in terms of the makeup of our country. And so I think we have to find a way to ensure that we connect with people in those different communities who don't understand the notion of this dream for everybody. Because if you don't, you're leaving them to those others that will take advantage of whatever it is that they have vulnerabilities, weaknesses in. Because people are being taken advantage of right now, in so many different communities. And so are we just gonna leave them there? Because if you do, they get more emboldened, and they're not leaving, you're raising new generations.
Right,
And
right.
so either we're gonna have a United States, and we have to make that decision. Do you want a United States or divided States of America? You know, and if you want to unite, you got to work toward it. And it's a marathon. It's not one generation. My mother said struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And so you've got to understand you are part of a whole long race towards creating this just, humane, equitable, and peaceful world. But I do think that the concentration of good and righteous behavior and actions and strategy have to be, you know, continue to cultivate and develop because, you know, evil is busy.
He was definitely busy. I think
I'm
I
not
would,
sure the opposite is just as busy.
A lot said right there.
I think I would add to that, if we progress from civil rights, we should call it human rights.
Right.
Human rights. You know what I'm saying? If you are a human, you're born into this world, you're a child of God. You come into the world, you're a human. Everybody has rights when they come out the womb. We should all have those same rights across the board. No matter what you look like, no matter who you identify with, we have human rights.
But we still, I'm 75 years old, and I am seeing. Thank you. But I am seeing and feeling the same sorts of things I went through in the early 50s when I went to my first integrated school. I am feeling some of the same hate and looks and treatment that I received in the 50s. And I guess I'm wondering, that beloved community, those of us who really believe in it, how do we change those who have not been exposed to what we've been through, which is why your book is so important. How do we educate when our history programs in our schools do not include our history?
Yeah, you know, I was just reading an article and I was really satisfied by what a group of ministers are doing in Florida. They decided, since they are doing banning in the school, we're going to begin to pick up the slack in our faith communities. And it's not just, you know, the Christian church. It's happening in the synagogues and mosques there too. And so we've got to figure out, in this season where a lot of this stuff is happening, what is an alternative plan in the meantime? Because if we just wait on the next election, we still got young people who are being denied the opportunity to be exposed to this history. And let's be honest, I didn't grow up where a lot of my history was taught in school. I mean, I'm talking to us in the black community.
Right.
Let's be honest. It's only been in recent times, probably in the last 17 years, mostly, where we've seen a lot of these books, you know, come into mainstream and begin to get into these school systems. And I'm not saying they should not be, but we should never substitute education of our community for what happens in the school system. We should still do what we're supposed to do, what we've always done in the black community, at least. We have, every other community does it.
So you and Mother Fletcher experienced violence at a very young age. How do you recover because there are children now experience violence in their own communities through gun violence, through just being mistreated. How does that beloved community give love, care, and make a difference the way you two have fought your way through it? How do you deal with the violence that happened to you and your family? And how do you use it to fuel what you do? Mother Fletcher, you wrote that book, and what do you want people to do with that book?
Read it.
And then what do you want them to do?
Write one.
And what did you teach us in that book about strength and survival?
Well, at my age, if I could do that, I think you can. Others can do the same thing. I'm only 109 years old.
But you have no bitterness. How did you keep from being bitter and angry?
Oh my goodness, there's so many things. It's so many things, you know, and it's not necessary. You don't have to be angry. It's better to stay pleasant and concerned about what you think, write, and talk about, and I think that helps. It helps me a lot.
And how did it help you? Because you saw what this did to your grandmother and to the community. How did you, particularly as a veteran, how did you work through it?
She has, when I saw her dealing with PTSD, I didn't know what it was. So then I went to the military, I did 3 or 4 wars, and I came back with PTSD. So I knew what it was. So. And she taught me, it takes so much energy to hate people. It's a lot easier to smile than it is to frown. I'm trying not to get emotional. But it takes a lot to hate people. And it makes you grow old. And carrying that type of hatred will make you, if you want to be 100, you gotta forgive. You know what I'm saying? Don't forget, but you have to forgive. And if you believe in a higher power, then, you know, they teach you the same thing. So really, there's a multitude of things, you know. Be know right, do right. Health is wealth, you know, our family models. You know, we tell jokes all the time. Me and Mother Fletcher, we be laughing all the time. You know, the other day I'm putting on, what am I? I'm helping her put her stuff on. I'm sitting on her wheelchair. The wheelchair backs up on me because I didn't put the brake on. I fell and busted my ass. Got a scratch on my back, you know. And she said, she looked at me, she said, I'm not gonna laugh, you know, because that looked like it hurt. So I said, "Great, you can laugh." Okay, I'm laughing, you know, we laugh about it. We have a lot of good time, though, but you have to laugh at life. You have to, you know, because life is gonna keep on lifing. Life is gonna keep on lifing. You have to laugh. You can't be so angry at everything. You gotta laugh at yourself, laugh at your neighbors, laugh with your neighbors. Understand that there are people that are ignorant, they don't know. And sometimes you have to befriend someone that doesn't know to show them how you grew up. You know, let them experience how you live. Put it in a book, you know, put it in a book. You know, we're fortunate to have some people that write great plays. I can think of a couple off the top of my head. Selma, The Untold Story, you know, that's a great play about voting rights and what happened with M.L. King. I think we have the Miss Jana here. She wrote the play. You can do a lot of things to educate people on so many different levels, whether it's in music, in theater, and books. And we need to do all we can to change the mind, hearts, and soul of people. People need to, there you go.
So, Reverend King, how did you overcome the violence that you saw that affected your family? And how do you use that to push the beloved community and nonviolence 365?
Yeah, so, so the first thing is I felt what I felt. Okay, I don't want people to think that just because I grew up in the household I grew up in, that everything was peaches and cream. I experienced a lot of anger and bitterness and rage, to the point that I was doing things that was damaging to the other people. And I had to look at that. And so understanding that these are real emotions, because I don't want people to think, that don't deny your emotions, find a way to rechannel them into something that's constructive and not destructive or counterproductive. And so going through my process of feeling and then realizing how it was affecting me, like he said, you know, it's more poisonous to us to let all of these emotions well up inside. So you gotta find some kind of outlet, some kind of channel, as he said, laughing, having circles of people where you can get it out, who understand you and give you that permission to get it out, because you have to get it out. If you don't get it out, you know, if you don't, it's kind of like water, it finds another, it'll get out. Like, if you don't deal, I had to preach the sermon years ago, if you don't deal with it, it's gonna deal with you.
Keep in mind, people, it's okay to cry.
Yes.
It's okay to cry.
And, you know, it's okay to confront some things, and if it's related to people, you know, I remember, even though my family does not believe, we had our own civil trial, does not believe James Earl Ray assassinated my father. We know that it was a government conspiracy. And one day we'll deal with that publicly, so that this nation eventually apologizes to our family for their participation in taking our father from us. So, but that's another subject. I went all on the wrong road.
It's okay.
It's okay. It took me down the wrong
Be
street,
real.
Angela. I want to acknowledge my cousin here tonight too. My father's sister's daughter, Evelyn Christine. We had a lot of long conversations about all of this, because we've been through a lot of trauma in our family. You know, my grandmother was shot in church down the street when I was 11. And so you have to find these means, and nonviolence became that. You know, Daddy understood, how do I rechannel all of this emotion, and rightful emotion, into something where people can get some measure of success and reward. And so that's what nonviolence does. It rechannels the anger and the frustration into something more constructive, and hopefully becomes more righteous indignation than the kind of anger that's self-targeted, because that's what happens over time. You know, if you internalize what people are doing to you, you can become like them. I think that's the problem with this nation. You had a group of people who escaped, you know, their form of exploitation and trauma out of other countries. They were hurt people who came over here and hurt people and damaged the whole nation. And we're still not addressing trauma in the United States of America. We should have a lot of money invested in trauma, because even as we talk about reparations, we got to repair some of the emotional and the psychological damage and harm, because you can have a bunch of money in reparations and still have a jacked up psyche. So it's a lot of work that we have to do. But for me, I have found refuge in my faith, first and foremost, as a Christian. The Holy Spirit is my comforter and my guide through everything, and helps me to gain insight and truth so that I can keep a balance of perspective about things and not go crazy and wacky. But also nonviolence. There's a whole, look, I'm gonna invite all of y'all in the room today, everybody who's listening via Facebook and YouTube and any other way, Twitter. We have the first ever Nonviolence 365 online. Y'all can keep ignoring it, but I'm gonna tell you. Like the prophet said, in 1964, my father challenged us to study nonviolence. He said, I suggest that the philosophy and strategy of nonviolence be immediately a subject of study and serious experimentation in every field of human conflict, by no means excluding relations between nations. He said that in 1964. How many years are we away from 1964? 59. We have yet to study it, experiment with it. And I'm saying, we have created an opportunity on our website you can go on. Yes, it costs. We're a nonprofit institution. We are not ashamed of charging for it. Sometimes we have scholarships because of some of the support of corporations in that. We have a workplace edition. We're trying to get into the workplace because we got to fight this stuff at a higher plane. We cannot fight problems on the same levels that they were created. We cannot try to meet physical force with the same kind of physical force. It will be mass destruction. And in the end, what do we have to say? It felt good. Really? I don't want to just feel good. I want to get to a place where I'm living in a world where we are coexisting as a human family with all of our diversity, in a way that we can respect, regard each other, and make sure everybody has what they need to live out their best life. That's where I want to be.
Dr. Maya Angelou said, tell the truth to yourself first and to the children. How do we tell the truth? The book is one way, but how do we, in this room and outside of this room, tell the truth? What is the truth that is most important for us to share with the world?
That we got a lot of work to do and we messed up. We got a lot of things to correct. That Black people are still last in every category. I have to say that. Because every day I wake up, I'm looking at our society and our world, and I look at the disparities that still exist for the Black community, and it's very troubling, it's very disturbing to me, and we can't sleep on that. We got to do something about that, because we're not going to get far in this world if we don't correct what has happened, especially to Black people in America. Especially. I'm talking about all over the world. Right. We have to correct this. We got to create a model for correcting it. We got to sit down and strategize and talk about what is the way forward to correct it and be truthful about what has happened. You said how you tell it, you just tell it, but you tell it in a way that you're not trying to destroy another individual. You're not trying to minimize them, and you're not trying to just shame them. We do a lot of shaming today. And I just don't think it's constructive. I don't think it's beneficial. It feels good. But that's a person who's still operating at a level that God didn't create you. God created us as higher conscious beings. And we have to start operating at that level. And I don't mean to insult anybody by this, but animals attack like that. Not people created in the image and after the likeness of God, who has the nature and character of God in them. And so if we're going to deal with this level of evil, we can't fight evil with evil. You can't fight injustice with injustice. You have to use a heart of love. And love is not weak, it's very powerful. If anybody thought that what my father was doing was weak, they are greatly deceived. That was a powerful vessel for God in the earth. And he accomplished more than we could have God gave us that. And so we're calling us into that kind of being. We have to be vessels for change. But if we get our emotions in the way of it and don't channel them in the right direction, then we are part of the problem.
Mm.
So, closing thoughts. Mr. Howard.
Well, put me on the spot. It's been a great discussion. Hope to see you guys participate in some of the things we brought forward. If you know right, do right. It's simple,
That's right.
common sense. We all know what's right. We all know what's wrong. Which side are you on? The right side or the wrong side? Regardless of what you see in the mirror, which side are you on? If you know right, just do right. I think we'll be a better world if we treat each other with dignity and respect and articulate what's right, what's wrong, and do the right thing when you know the right thing to do.
Dr. King, explain impact over fame.
Huh? Turn around.
Turn around so they can see your jacket.
Now, I can't take credit for this, and I would never do that. A young lady by the name of Sierra Fly Bobo. Yeah, a lot of these young ladies here know her. She's a young lady that I'm one of her mentors. She's one of our trainers here at the King Center. This is part of her brand, and when I saw it, I said, I want some of those. I mean, I literally have them in all kind of colors. You don't see a lot. Because we live in a society now where everybody's, trying to get on the gram and be somebody great and, popular. We're in a celebrity culture. And everybody just wants to be it. And I'm saying, that ain't where it's at. Where it's at is having a servant's heart to impact this world. People ain't gonna remember you for your fame.
Okay.
They're gonna remember you for your impact. And so that's what it means for me.
So, Mother Fletcher, I'm going to ask you a question I asked you in the room back there, because everybody in this room wants to know. How can you look so good at 109?
From above. Oh, it's a blessing. And I'm in good health and try to be fair with everybody. I love everybody. And I've listened to all the talk about, being truthful. I've avoided getting in those cramps to where I have to explain and do all of that for myself. So you have to leave. I feel like I've kept myself free all of these years. That's it.
I was in her house. This is when we had the telephone with the long cord. I used to take it to the bathroom. I'm cooking with the cord. We had the dial, the rotary dial. And somebody had the same phone number for years, 336-5880. And people would call, girls would call, and somebody called the phone, and Granny answered the phone, and she said who it was. I said, I'm not here. She said, boy, you better come get this phone. I'm not gonna lie for you. I said, Granny, this is important. I'm not here. You don't understand. This girl right here is straight. I'm not here. She said, well, step outside the door. And I stepped out on the, opened the screen door, stepped outside the door. She said, honey, child, he just stepped out. So I can bear witness. She ain't gonna lie for you. You know what I'm saying? You do a crime around her or something that ain't right. She ain't with it. She ain't with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please have a round of applause? Buy her memoir, How Can We Live History to Light the Path to the Beloved Community also. And please visit thekingcenter.org, Beloved Community Talks, to learn more about how you can continue this conversation with people you engage in your everyday life. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for all of you watching. I hope you've learned something, and I hope more importantly you will